what is being sought to be done is to undermine the order by saying, okay, we are not touching the mosque per se, but on the mosque, at the periphery of the mosque, there is the well. The well is part of. There are people who think it is a temple and all that, and then from within the well also, according to some people, what some people have told me, there can be claims to be caves which will lead to temples. And the Supreme Court today basically has said, look, once we've ordered status quo on a site, please do not try to use an Americanism, get cute with us. Right now, the administration in India, in Uttar Pradesh, seems to think that, the Supreme Court may say anything, but we can continue to do things with business as usual. I doubt that the civil courts will be as receptive to what the state or the plaintiffs who claim that every mosque is a temple. I don't think that civil courts will very easily run counter to what the Supreme Court has said. It's very unlikely. It has always been the tendency of the Yogi government. Right. Even when there were orders passed during the CAA protests about that you cannot name people against whom you are threatening to recover money for damage to public property, and you can't put their posters up. Some Yogi officials apparently may actually put out more of those posters on routes that the judges took from their houses to the court. So there often is an unstated kind of aggression to say that you may say whatever you want to sitting in your courtrooms, but implementing them on the ground, you will not come there and do it. We Absolutely. Have to do it. We may or we may not do it, depending on what we feel about your orders.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. A bench of Chief Justice of India, Sanjeev Khanna, and Justice Sanjay issued notice to the state government on a plea by the Sambhal Shahi Jama Masjid Committee. The court has sought response from the Uttar Pradesh government by February 21st, 2025 by asking it not to give effect to the notice which was sent by the Nagar Palika. Now, the state government submitted that the situation around the place was peaceful, but the applicants sought to create an issue. And senior advocate Huzaifa Ahmadi, appearing for the mosque committee, submitted that a notice issued by Nagar Palika called the well being used for ablution purposes as Hari Mandir. So the big question is that why is Nagar Palika now getting into an affair like this when Supreme Court has completely put a stay on this? Now, this matter is posted for February 21st, but then in another matter where Yogi government has faced a setback is another matter where on Thursday, Supreme Court had ordered status quo on the construction of housing units under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana at a disputed site in Lucknow's Jiamau, whose ownership is claimed by the sons of the late gangster turned politician Mukhtar Ansari. Now, in 2020, Lucknow Development Authority had bulldozed the bungalow that belonged to Ansari and his sons, including Abbas Ansari. The government plans to build flats on the land under the PM Awas Yojana. So this double whammy for Yogi government, and what is the main politics behind it, and what is the legal position on this? Joining me now is Supreme Court lawyer and constitutional expert Sanjay Hegde with us this evening. Thank you so much, Mr. Hegde, for joining on HW News.
And thank you for having me.
Yes, sir, my pleasure. And I'll begin today's discussion with actually what Supreme Court has said on the well which is there around the Sambhal mosque, which the Nagar Palika said that it should be like a Sri Hari Mandir. How do you really make out this intervention of the Nagar Palika in this particular case, where Supreme Court has already said that we will not take forward these matters,
Well, the Supreme Court stay has not been taken kindly by the administration. Ultimately, court orders have to be obeyed by everyone. That is the basis of the rule of law. And court orders, you can appeal to a higher court. And when the Supreme Court, higher than the Supreme Court, there's no other court. So when the Supreme Court says something, it is final, it has to be obeyed. There was this attempt to create a dispute about the Sambhal mosque, at which point of time there was also the question of the Places of Worship Act as to whether it covered, it maintained the status quo as on 1947 for all religious structures in the country, except the Ayodhya site. And the Supreme Court stayed proceedings everywhere. Now, that order obviously cannot be challenged or is likely to endure for some time till and when the main matter is heard. What is being sought to be done is to undermine the order by saying, okay, we're not touching the mosque per se, but on the mosque, at the periphery of the mosque, there is the well. The well is part of. There are people who think it is a temple and all that, and then from within the well also, according to some people, what some people have told me, there can be claims to be caves and caves which will lead to temples. And so the Supreme Court today basically has said, look, once we've ordered status quo on a site, please do not try to use an Americanism, get cute with us. Therefore, whatever is the situation, do not precipitate anything.
No, but Mr. Hegde, do you think that the administration is deliberately trying to, go in for a contempt of the Supreme Court order? It would obviously be seen as a contempt of the Supreme Court if they have already put a stay on this, and if the Nagar Palika is going ahead and lacing up this case with various facts. Is it not tantamount to contempt?
Well, it is an attempt at it. Whether that attempt has to succeed before contempt action is drawn by the courts, that is another question. Everywhere it is that constant tug of war, trying to say, okay, can I at least do this? Can I not do this? Can I not do this? And the courts have been constantly saying no. When we say no, it means no. At some stage, some officer may just push it a bit too far, or there may be some situation which, because of such actions on the part of the administration, then gets precipitated. At that point of time, I believe the courts will take a very dim view of any officer who has taken this course. Just to tell you an example from American constitutional history. When desegregation happened, many of the southern states were not the US South. Those states did not really want desegregation. Even the president at that point of time, President Eisenhower, would have much rather had the South do its own thing. But he took the view that once the Supreme Court has passed a judgment, it was his constitutional job as head of the state to effectuate the judgment. He did not say, Justice Earl Warren has passed his judgment, let him implement it. Right now, the administration in India, in Uttar Pradesh, seems to think that, the Supreme Court may say anything, but we can continue to do things with business as usual.
Right. But Mr. Hegde, I also want to understand from your perspective that, the posters had been put up around the Sambhal and near the mosque indicating the location of the historical wells and therein the mosque has been shown as a temple. Now, these posters also bear the indication that they have been installed by the Nagar Palika. Now, is Nagar Palika then trying to become an extra judicial body or some kind of an extra administrative arm of the Yogi government, where they think that through the Nagar Palika now they can circumvent what Supreme Court said? I mean, is this a new kind of a pattern you see?
The Nagar Palika is also a part of the government of a state to a certain extent, though they constitutionally, panchayats and Nagar Palikas also have a constitutional status, but largely they go by the directions of the state government. And yes, the state government might be trying to use the fiction or the judicial personality of the Nagar Palika as an excuse. No, I did not do it. Somebody who's sometimes subordinate to me did it. This again is a subterfuge which, when examined critically, will not stand.
What do you really say to the conduct of the civil courts? Now, if the civil courts are not doing anything and the Nagar Palika is doing it, but eventually what happens? And do you think that the Supreme Court stay, which was put in force last time, will it have any bearing on the civil courts, or rather you will see them continuing as they were? Will they have the audacity to?
I doubt that the civil courts will be as receptive to what the state or the plaintiffs who claim that every mosque is a temple. I don't think that civil courts will very easily run counter to what the Supreme Court has said. It's very unlikely. There may be an odd civil judge who might think that he is not subject to that Article 141 of the Constitution does not apply to him, that the law declared by the Supreme Court is not binding on him, but that can be taken care of on the judicial side. However, what really troubles me is the attitude of the administration. Administrators must know that for the rule of law to run, everybody must obey the law. And that means citizen and government alike. And that is why we have courts who are independent between the citizen and the government. And once a court says something, then it has to be obeyed. It's like saying that, okay, I will play test cricket, but I will not listen to the umpire.
No, but Mr. Hegde, I also want to talk about the attitude of the ruling government in Uttar Pradesh, and I'm talking about Yogi government, that if it is indulging in activities like these where they really have disdain for the courts, what the courts are saying, and they continue with their agenda, not in one but many places, and digging up wells, sometimes they're talking about digging up dargahs. What is the ultimate goal? Of course, there is a Hindu card which is trying to play, but what does it do to the state's social fabric there?
The state social fabric it does not seem to be the concern of the administration. They want to constantly tell their core voter, or their what used to be called the fringe earlier, but is their core voter now, that look, we are fighting for you with the courts themselves. It will take time, but we have not given up the fight. And therefore, whether through the Nagar Palika, whether through some actions on the ground, through the plaintiffs or through other administrators, there are constant attempts to circumvent the court order. But courts also know when to crack the whip. Sometimes a long rope is given.
Right. No, you're right. But what is your feeling looking at the conduct of the Yogi government, that last time when the Supreme Court had put a stay, and if again the Nagar Palika has now come in between and then they are trying to do all these kind of activities, do you think that the Yogi government in its own way is trying to circumvent the Supreme Court? Because, okay, if the route A doesn't work, then okay, we'll explore the route B. Is this a tendency which you see on the part of the Yogi government?
Of course. It has always been the tendency of the Yogi government.
Right.
Even when there were orders passed during the CAA protests about, that you cannot name and people against whom you are threatening to recover money for damage to public property, and you can't put their posters up. Some Yogi officials apparently may actually put out more of those posters on routes that the judges took from their houses to the court. So there often is an unstated kind of aggression to say that you may say whatever you want to, sitting in your courtrooms, but implementing them on the ground, you will not come there and do it. We have to do it. We may or we may not do it, depending on what we feel about your orders.
Right. I'll come to the second case now, and of course, where Supreme Court has ordered a status quo on the construction under the PM Awas Yojana on Abbas Ansari's land in Lucknow. Now, the very fact that the government went ahead with the construction of the PM Awas Yojana houses, and now Supreme Court putting a stay, what is the kind of message do you think that the Supreme Court has sent out today to the Yogi government?
The Supreme Court did not go out to send a message. It was the people who owned the land. They continue to be the owners. There may have been a demolition of the structure on the land for whatever reason that may have been agitated separately. But they do not cease to be owners of the land. They do not lose title over the land. And nobody can come and say, okay, I will build something for whatsoever noble purpose. It may be PM Awas Yojana this time. Next time they will say, no, we need to have community facilities. We need public toilets on that area. Can you bring down somebody's house and then say, okay, I will build whatever I want on it? No. There is something. No man can be deprived of even his property without resort to the rule of law. You want the property rights, then you will have to acquire it.
All right. So if you look at the history of this case, on October 21st last year, Supreme Court had asked the High Court to take up the application for interim stay for hearing as early as possible. And when the matter came up for hearing in the Supreme Court on Thursday, Kapil Sibal, who was a lawyer, he informed the bench that despite its order, the case has not been taken for hearing. And after which what the bench has remarked, it seems to be quite revealing. And I'm going to quote what exactly the bench said. Bench said, some high courts, we don't know what will happen. Allahabad High Court is one of the high courts which one should be worrisome about. Now, this is a very, very strong comment coming from the Supreme Court on Allahabad High Court. What does it really go to show? What has really gone wrong? Is the rot too deep in Allahabad High Court, even to repair the things as what they are existing right now?
The Allahabad High Court is or used to be one of the greatest courts in this country. It's one of the oldest as well. It celebrated 150 years when its then Chief Justice Chandrachud had a huge function. It has the most number of judges. It has produced great lawyers of this country. Mr. Shanti Bhushan, who passed away last year, who had been law minister, the great Kanayalal Mishra, and Satej Bahadur Sapru, the Nehrus, all kinds of people have come from the Allahabad High Court, and it used to be a very good institution. Unfortunately, over the years, there have been many institutions in Allahabad which have tended to not perform to what they were in their glory days. And sometimes the rot gets accentuated. As I told you in the earlier segment, the rule of law depends on not only the people, but the government also obeying the law. Over the last decade, one cannot say that the Uttar Pradesh government has gone out of its way to obey the law willingly. It's quite natural for some judges then to say, why should we pass orders which we know will not get obeyed? So why should we listen to the matters which could be deemed controversial, where the governments are likely to be offended whichever way we rule? So sometimes judges also then do not take up certain contentious issues.
Right.
Maybe this was one such issue.
Yeah, but this is a sad state of affairs, and just not one, but there are a couple of examples where Allahabad High Court has just been on the decline. The manner in which the judges have conducted themselves, and Supreme Court saying that something is quite worrisome about Allahabad High Court. Look what Justice Shekhar Yadav had said, and it became viral. After which now we see this particular incident. You yourself said that there was a time when Allahabad High Court was one of the greatest high courts. And can I ask you a very candid question? That do you feel that Allahabad High Court is one of the most rotten high courts currently, the way the things are functioning there?
Well, if you ask the people in Allahabad themselves, they will tell you that things are not good. There have been some very good Chief Justices in recent times who have tried to improve it, but who have been there all too briefly, and then faced with a judge strength of over 100 judges, and with that huge state, some things can't be changed overnight. It would help greatly if there was a culture of accepting the rulings of courts, and that had been more forthcoming from the government. Today, often in many courts, what happens is that you either get an interim order or you don't get an interim order. And thereafter, the actual hearing of the case, it never sees the light of the day. If you ask about the Allahabad High Court, as far as the criminal side is concerned, I believe criminal appeals languished there for nearly 2 decades, if not more. So it's often a question that even if you're convicted of murder, if you manage to get bail fast enough while the appeal is pending, then you are pretty sure that in your lifetime, the matter will not be heard.
But Mr. Hegde, you yourself said that there has to be a culture for accepting the court ruling, and the way things are happening in Uttar Pradesh, and I'm talking about the Yogi government. There are 2 incidents of which we are talking about today, this Sambhal case and of course this Mukhtar Ansari's case. Do you think that Yogi government has a culture of not accepting the court ruling, and it's time now to really call out for this anomaly, because somewhere down the line, even the image of the judiciary is getting tarnished because of this?
Yes, and there are many people who have called it out, but that doesn't make any difference to the government, which is very sure that it will get re-elected because people do not care about the rule of law. That seems to be the question. If we are not only law-abiding citizens, but we also care about others obeying the law, that is when there will be an attitude change even among the politicians. Otherwise, it is an attitude of putting your hand on your hips and saying, come and get me. You can't make me do it.
True. So what is how does one make Yogi government understand that courts are courts, or they've decided because of their brazen Hindu card which they are playing, and everybody says that he's on a totally different trip right now, especially after the bad performance during the Lok Sabha elections where he failed miserably, and the buck stops at Yogi now, and he's trying to prove himself much larger than what Prime Minister Modi is, and because of this outright agenda which he's playing out, all the institutions are are suffering because of this.
Well, that is for the not only the party and its leadership to ponder over, but it is for the people to ponder over, because unless you empower such politicians, or you promise to empower such politicians, those politicians will also not feel disemboldened. See, in the old days, in the Congress days, I'm told of a particular chief minister who kept saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, it will be done, sir, when he was in conversation with a particular person who was a High Court judge. So before becoming a High Court judge, that person had been a government lawyer. So a friend of the chief minister asked the chief minister, when he was a lawyer, you did not particularly care too much for him. But now you are you're bowing and scraping and saying, yes, sir, no, sir. So the chief minister is supposed to have replied that at that point of time, he could not remove me from office. Now he can. So, if courts are not listened to, it is possibly because courts have also been only willing to strike but afraid to wound. When I was in law school, in law college, just before that, we used to regularly have the phenomenon of chief ministers who had to resign after court verdicts came against them. We had Mr. Antule in Maharashtra. We had Mr. Arjun Singh in Madhya Pradesh. Today, please tell me, where has a court come out with a decision after which a chief minister has been asked to put in his papers? I can't remember anything in the last 10 years.
Absolutely. No, that's a very serious concern. And my last question to you, Mr. Hegde, is that according to you and how you have been viewing the Yogi government, what do you think is Yogi Adityanath's attitude towards judiciary? If I may ask you from your perspective, from your prism, how do you look at Yogi Adityanath's attitude towards judiciary?
He for him and his government, I believe they think it is something just to be managed, just to be endured, just to be tolerated. It's not an institution that they would pay heed to or pledge obedience to. So I do not think that they particularly hold the judiciary in any kind of esteem whatsoever. They are there because they are necessary organs of state which can sort out problems between person and person. But between person and state, where the state interests, particularly political interests, are involved, they would expect a judiciary tailored to measure, as Mr. Palkewala once put it.
Absolutely. Highly unfortunate, but so enlightening after listening to you always, Mr. Hegde. Thank you so much for joining on HW News. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay ahead with our cutting edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.